What's up, folks? It's your buddy Fatalroadie. Tonight we're going to be doing the Raw recap. Before we start, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the loss of Nikolai Volkov, Brian Christopher, and Brickhouse Brown, who lost their lives on July 29th. We started off tonight with a recap of the Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns match last week, and after a quick shot of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman backstage, we go to Roman Reigns coming out to the ring. Once he gets into the ring, he's welcomed by "You Suck" chants, and immediately Roman Reigns gets to run down Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman comes out. He comments on Roman Reigns' repeated attempts at the Universal Championship. Roman Reigns then calls out Brock Lesnar, to which Paul Heyman says that Lesnar will come out whenever he feels like it. Reigns then tells Paul Heyman that he's going to send Brock Lesnar back to the UFC, not as the Beast, but as Roman Reigns' bit. We then come to our first match, Baron Corbin versus Finn Balor, again. This was, however, a pretty good match. I'm pretty sure we're going to be continuing the I'm bigger and better big cast storyline that was cut short. Finn Balor set up the coup de grace, to which Baron Corbin rolled out of it, gave the end of days to Finn Balor for the pin. After the match, Baron Corbin threw Finn Balor out of the ring and then beat him up at the barricade. Backstage, we find out from Kurt Angle that if Paul Heyman does not produce Brock Lesnar in the ring by the end of the night, that he is fired from Raw. And throughout most of the night, we see Brock Lesnar reading a magazine backstage, not giving a shit about what's going on. We then have a recap of the announcement of Evolution, which brings us to our next match, Natalya versus Alicia Fox, with Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss at ringside. This was an okay match. Alexa Bliss interfered, allowing Alicia Fox to get the boot on Natalya for the pin. After the match, Ronda Rousey chased down Alexa Bliss. She ended up getting beat down by Alicia Fox and Alexa Bliss. Later on, we find out that Ronda Rousey will be facing Alicia Fox next week. And right before we get to a commercial, we have Elias strumming his guitar. I guess we kind of screwed up there, didn't we? Done. Nope. We then cut to a commercial, and finally, once we come back to commercial, Elias is announced. He's strumming his guitar, wasting time like he always does. He's then interrupted by Bobby Lashley. After a verbal back and forth between Lashley and Elias, Bobby Lashley starts to sing terribly, Rockin' Robin. Elias attacks Bobby Lashley from behind. A fight breaks out, and Elias is sent scampering away. We then have Braun Strowman versus Jinder Mahal. To put it quite frankly, this is a bullshit match. Shortly after the match starts, we see Kevin Owens trying to steal the Money in the Bank briefcase. Braun Strowman chases after Kevin Owens, getting himself counted out, so Jinder Mahal wins. Backstage in the locker room, Mojo Rawley gets into a fight with Bobby Lashley, so I'm guessing that this is going to be on the pay-per-view. My guess will be the kickoff show. We then have Apollo Crews versus Akam of Authors of Pain. This is actually a surprising match. I thought it was going to be a squash match in Akam's favor, but Apollo Crews got the roll-up for the pin, and he immediately bugged out of there. So I guess next week we'll have Razar versus Titus, and Titus will lose, because that's the way WWE does their booking anymore. We then have Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. This is actually going to be a decent match. It was actually looking pretty good with a ton of action. But Seth Rollins got the stomp, went for the pin, and Dolph Ziggler had to get his nose into it and got Drew McIntyre disqualified. Backstage, Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin tell Roman Reigns that he's being removed from the arena to avoid any problems with Brock Lesnar. This was an order from Stephanie McMahon. Then Baron Corbin calls in the officers to remove him from the arena. As he's leaving, Roman Reigns bitch slaps Baron Corbin and then is escorted out. We then have an in-ring interview with the B team. Bo Dallas says that the B stands for Dream. What? After a bit of nonsense, a whole bunch of flashy shit happens, and guess what? The Deleter of Worlds show up. Matt Hardy says that they will haunt the B team until they are deleted, and then the Revival come out, talking a bunch of shit. They're still riding on the Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley win. Shortly afterwards, a fight breaks out between the Deleter of Worlds and the Revival, which brings us to our next match. The Revival versus the Deleter of Worlds in a tag team match, with the B team up at the announcer's table. This was actually a pretty good match. I liked it. The Revival won with the Shatter Machine on Bray Wyatt. Then the Revival was sitting there in the ring talking a bunch of shit to the B team who's up on the ramp. Backstage, we have an interview with Seth Rollins, who's quickly beat up by Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. And then I guess you can call this the main event, being it's the last match of the night. Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan of the Riot Squad. I guess Ember Moon was off tonight. This was actually a pretty decent match. It wasn't anything really overtly shady going on throughout the match. Bayley and Sasha Banks won with a backstabber, belly-to-belly combo on Liv Morgan for the pin. After the match, they hug it out. Not saying that I'm against them being buddies and all, but after the whole storyline of the two of them trying to fight, getting in each other's faces and everything like that, and all of a sudden, we're just friends, everything just forgotten. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. But who am I to try to understand WWE booking? Backstage, we have Paul Heyman pleading to Brock Lesnar to come out. Brock Lesnar yokes up Paul Heyman and tells him to go out to the ring and handle business. To which we have Kurt Angle coming out with Baron Corbin. And Angle says that Paul Heyman is supposed to have Brock Lesnar out by the end of tonight, or he's no longer with Raw. Heyman comes out, announcing like he always does, but rather subdued. The crowd greets him with the chants of goodbye. Paul Heyman says that Brock Lesnar is not coming out, to which Kurt Angle says that Brock Lesnar is the worst Universal Champion of all time. Paul Heyman then comes clean about Brock Lesnar hating everybody and then starts to suck up to Kurt Angle. Angle tells Heyman that his contract is terminated, to which Paul Heyman starts groveling at Kurt Angle's feet. Brock Lesnar then comes out. Paul Heyman now is looking very smug. Lesnar asks Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin if they got a problem with him, then gives an F5 to Kurt Angle. Baron Corbin backs up out of the ring, and then Brock Lesnar takes his frustrations out on Paul Heyman. He leaves Heyman lying on the mat as he walks up the ramp, and we close tonight's Raw. Surprisingly, this was actually a pretty decent Raw. I liked it. With the exception of the Braun Strowman-Jinder Mahal match, everything was actually pretty good. They got the storylines flowing, and everything so far looks to be smooth sailing all the way up to SummerSlam. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Raw Recap. I'll be back tomorrow for the SmackDown review. Leave a comment down below what you thought of tonight's Raw, what you thought of this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to share and subscribe. I've been Fatalroadie. You've been awesome. Thank you very much for watching. And remember, if it's too loud, you're too old. See ya.